in the Democratic Republic of the Congo is still mostly a promise. There are discrepancies between the progress we see on paper and the reality we observe on the ground, which continues to be marred with violence.
The UN also blames armed groups in eastern DRC for the rise in civilian attacks. It says more than 1,000 Congolese people have been killed in Ituri and North Kivu since June. Now this, as the former President Joseph Kabila is convicted and handed down a death sentence in absentia. He was found guilty of backing M23 rebels who have seized large parts of the country's east. Armed groups' attacks have uprooted over 5 million people from their homes in eastern Congo. It's thought that there are more than 100 rebel groups in the DRC. The UN says that at least 5 of them are behind the violence. Now, M23 rebels are mostly led by ethnic Tutsis who say they took up arms to protect the rights of the minority group. Last year, they merged with several armed groups to form the Congo River Alliance, or AFC. Together, they control most towns in North Kivu and South provinces in eastern DRC. While the Daesh-linked Allied Democratic Forces is a Ugandan rebel group formed in 1990s, accusing the government of persecuting Muslims. They've been clashing with M23 rebels and have also been blamed for civilian attacks. The Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, that is FDLR, is a Congo-based armed group accused of being responsible for the genocide against the Tutsis in Rwanda. Kigali describes it as a genocidal militia. Codeco is one of the many militias fighting over land and resources in eastern Congo, which has been carrying out recent civilian attacks. U.S. and Qatar-mediated peace talks are yet to stop the violence on the ground. Now, all sides have violated their ceasefire commitments with impunity, and both the Congolese and Rwandan governments accuse the other of supporting rival armed groups.
FDLR is assisted by the DRC government. It is there, it is known, it is in your reports. MONUSCO cooperates with the DRC government, with DRC army, knowing FDLR is within DRC army.
This country invaded the territory of the Democratic Republic of Congo. They have their troops on the territory of the DRC. They kill every day.
Meanwhile, the former DRC President Joseph Kabila, who led the country between 2001 to 2019, is now facing the death penalty for backing the M23 rebel advance. He's also been ordered to pay about $33 billion in damages to the national government. The North and South Kivu provinces in eastern DRC. Kabila denies the charges, accusing the judiciary of being politicized, and is unlikely to receive any punishment as no one knows for sure where he is, though it is likely he is taking refuge outside Kinshasa's jurisdiction.
We
ask the AFC, M23 and the Kinshasa government to be very sincere in their commitments and not repeat what we experienced last time when we were told there will be a ceasefire. But weapons continue to fire here and there.
These kinds of situations will not bring peace to the East. Rather, it is by sitting around a table to discuss the real problems that are shaking the country today, and more particularly the east of the Republic, that the population will be able to find peace.
Now let's talk to Olawale Ismail. He is a senior lecturer at the African Leadership Center at King's College London. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Matters. Now, both the U.S. and Qatar peace deals were criticized for not including all the militia. Now, how can this be done where there are so many of them?
Well, thank you. It's a mess in every sense of it, because you have over 120 armed groups and militias operating in different parts of the DRC. So what you have is a multi-layered system of armed groups and militias operating. Nonetheless, when the US and Qatar peace deals that brought together Rwanda on the one hand and the government of DRC on the other, when it's being criticized for not including other armed groups. I think we shouldn't be fixed on the armed groups per se. What is important is if we read into the history of the DRC, if you are going to have an enduring peace in the DRC, if you are really going to address the instability in DRC, you need an inclusive peace process that is not just about photo ops of signing agreement with one representative of Rwanda and representative of DRC, taking photos in the Oval Office and the rest. No, it has to be a negotiated and inclusive peace process that will include a variety of actors.
All right.
Yes, the government of Rwanda and DRC, but also other regional actors and regional players, civil society groups, community groups, and community leaders. And within this network of armed groups, you have some key personalities, some key leaders that are able to rein in smaller militia groups. So you want to bring forth those heads of major armed groups into some form of inclusion as well.
But then, some of these armed groups that are residing in Eastern DRC were not initially formed inside the Eastern DRC. When we look at that, then when you're saying that they needed to be included, and at the back of our mind, we know that they were not formed inside the DRC, but outside the DRC, and they sought refuge in Eastern DRC. So when you're talking about regional player, how are neighboring countries, that is Rwanda, because some rebels that were formed in Uganda are in Eastern DRC. So these countries such as Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi, how are they influencing the situation?
You see, the insecurity and all the countless wars of the DRC, it's not about DRC alone. The security challenges of DRC are also the security challenges of the entire region. So when you think of armed groups in the DRC, look back in the last 60, 70, 80 years, there have been a lot of population movement, refugees, displacement, such that it's even very difficult to know who is actually from DRC and who is not from DRC. Don't forget that all the ethnic groups in Rwanda, in Burundi, in DRC, in Uganda, they have siblings, kith and kings across the borders. So even when you say that particular armed groups have not been formed in the DRC, you would know that they do have kith and kings in the DRC. You can dig into the history of President Kagame himself. He was in the DRC, he was in Uganda, he was part of the NRA movement that brought President Museveni to power in Uganda before he went back to Rwanda. So the history of DRC, of armed groups, of citizens, of armed groups and militias and ethnic groups in DRC is constantly very fluid, it's in a flux. So the issue of whether one group is forming the DRC or not does not really hold much. The important thing is, are they operating in DRC? Do they hold territories in the DRC?
Right.
What are their demands? How can they best be brought into the peace process? That, I think, is what matters, and less about whether they were actually formed inside the DRC or outside of the DRC.
All right.
You will find that armed groups in the DRC, they have tentacles in other regional actors. Now, in terms of the regional, neighboring states, Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, it has been established that right from the 60s all through to the Kabila wars of the Mobutu in the 80s into the 90s and up to the present day, that what is effectively any insecurity in DRC affects the entire region and vice versa. So the security and stability of these countries are intertwined. So, for example, you look at Uganda, you look at the armed groups that are disturbing, people in Uganda, they have their roots in the DRC and vice versa. When war was to break out in Rwanda, the armed groups launched from inside the DRC and vice versa. So all of these are all connected.
So how can the DRC central government restore control in the east in places where there's a security vacuum?
It has to be, a multi-layered process. And when I say multi-layered process, I think the starting point is to first ask the current country called DRC is quite huge in terms of landmass, perhaps the biggest, if not one of the biggest in Africa. The political system that is operating today, is it tenable? Is it the proper political system that fit DRC? Is it operating a federal system? Is it better off with a confederal system where you have autonomous, provinces and the rest? So there will be some semi, form of, I don't want to call it independence, but, a bit of, the provinces have considerable powers to administer those provinces. That's one. Secondly, you also want to look at the economic realities of the DRC. It has been established that the economies of some neighboring countries is tied to resource mining and all this exploitation of minerals in the DRC. So is there a possibility of a win-win situation whereby DRC and neighboring countries can come to an agreement that is a win-win for everybody? Number three is also to settle some long-standing historical issues about citizenship, about refugees, the return of refugees, who is from the DRC, who is not from the DRC, what are the terms of citizenship, not just in legal or constitutional matters, but even in civic and cultural terms. So who is acceptable, or who is actually from where, or who owns what territory, who is able to preside over what territory. So when all of these very complex issues are resolved, the issues of being able to exercise control, the mechanism for exercising control on certain provinces can also be resolved alongside with it.
Right. And earlier on, I'd asked you the question about including, should they be left out of the conversation or not? I just want us to revisit that for a minute, whether the DRC can achieve peace without including the militia in the ongoing peace talks, because that is the same concern that the M23 rebel leader talked about when it came to, the DRC, Rwanda, Washington peace deal.
It's not possible for you to have any sustainable, any serious peace or enduring peace in DRC if all the key stakeholders are not included. So this American-led peace agreement between Rwanda and the government of DRC, for me, it can only be useful as the start of a process, of a peace process, rather than the peace process itself. So if you have such headline engagement by the government of the United States, forcing all the key players, you now need to build on that, which is now to go to the next stage, to now say, okay, the first stage we have done with the political actors, the main political actors, which are the government of Rwanda and DRC. The next stage is let's look at the combat actors. Who are the key combat actors now? M23, all the other armed groups that are scattered in the DRC, in Ituri, in South and North Kivu, bring them to also find a mechanism that brings them to the table. But even before that, you want to bring in the regional actors, the regional countries. You want to bring in the government of Uganda. You want to bring in the government of Burundi, and also the regional allies, the East African community, governments of Kenya, and all the other members of the EAC. You also, because there is a sense that this peace process that is, signed in Washington is not African. It's, it's because it's even to have gone to sign it in America. If you look at African, peace processes in Africa, the peace processes that have succeeded in Africa are peace processes that are owned, driven, and also guaranteed by key African actors and institutions, including the African Union and regional bodies like EAC, IGAD, and the rest. So there is also a need to Africanize, to bring back the ownership and the driving of this peace process back to Africa so that it becomes owned and driven in Africa. America has a role to play, no doubt about that, but that role cannot be, the face of the, America cannot be the face of that peace process. Africa has to be the face of that peace process.
All right. Thank you so much. Olawale Ismail, a senior lecturer at the African Leadership Center at King's College, London. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Still to come here on Africa Matters.
I am Isadin Haji reporting from northeastern Kenya about the impact of human trafficking networks in the region and the root cause of youth choosing to migrate. through deadly routes in Libya.
I'm Nogukanya Musi in Eswatini, where local women are cultivating more than just chili peppers. With the guidance from an entrepreneur from Colombia, they are sowing the seeds of empowerment, transforming their lives, and adding a sprinkling of spice to their communities.
We head to northeast Kenya now, where human trafficking networks are luring young people with promises of a better life in Europe. But it's a trap. They will then be smuggled to Libya and held ransom until their families pay for their safe return. Eswatini Haji met with some of the families fighting to get their children back to Algeria.
53-year-old Halima cannot hold back her tears as she watches a video of her son being tortured. His kidnappers say Hassan Mohamed Mumin is in Libya, and they are demanding roughly $20,000 from Halima.
My life changed when I saw my son being tortured. My husband and I got sick. When close family members couldn't help, my husband went to the city to look for money. I also go door to door to my neighbors to ask for what little they can contribute.
And places like this, where youth play football, have also become hotspots for human traffickers. A former player of this team is currently being held captive in Libya. His family is still struggling to raise money for his release.
He was in the team. We used to train him. He was a good player, but all of a sudden we had he was out. He's in the hand of human traffickers, and it affected the team since maybe these are young men. They might see him as an example.
Many victims are lured with promises of jobs or education through social media platforms like Facebook, WhatsApp, and TikTok. And researchers say traffickers are using two popular routes. The first one is from northeastern Kenya via South Sudan, Sudan, and Egypt before arriving in Libya. They also use a similar route that includes Uganda as they head to Libya. Organizations like Hagen are helping young Kenyans to learn more about their culture, in particular traditional dances, as a way of keeping them busy and to hopefully earn some money from their performances.
The benefit of practicing traditional dances is job creation. Also, young men and women are full of energy. When they don't have something to focus their energy on, they make bad decisions.
Police say they are seeing an increase in the number of people falling prey to human traffickers.
Latest population census indicate more than half of Kenya's unemployed are young people between the ages of 20 and 29. It could be the driving force behind mass migration to Europe. But it's this plight that's making young people easy prey for human trafficking networks, promising a bright future across dangerous routes in Libya. Eswatini Haji, Africa Matters, Wajir Town, northeastern Kenya.
To the southern African nation of Eswatini next, where formal employment opportunities remain scarce. Now, the World Bank says 25,000 job seekers enter the market annually, but only 1,000 new jobs are created every year. And with an employment rate of 52.4%, it says young women face even greater challenges. But a Colombian entrepreneur is trying to make things better by using an innovative approach, as Nakuhonya Musi tells us.
Claudia Castellanos first came to Eswatini as a volunteer in 2008. She established Black Mamba chili sauce 2 years later. The name was inspired by one of Africa's most dangerous snakes, reflecting the brand's commitment to deliver flavors that pack a punch.
What we would like to do with Black Mamba is to encourage more women to see agriculture as a very interesting way of living, of life, not only because of the income that you can get out of the produce, but also because of the community sense that you get when you're in the fields.
Black Mamba Chili offers a variety of products, including chili sauce, pesto, chutney, chili crunch, and jam, all made from fresh ingredients sourced from over 50 female smallholder farmers. Over 1,000 Eswatini women are transforming their lives through farming chili peppers. They are now able to forge new paths of opportunity by weaving strong community ties with an added touch of spice. 39-year-old Phumzile Mabuza has been growing and selling chilies to Black Mamba for 3 years.
Black Mamba helped me a lot. I'm able to feed my family. I feel like I'm having an income as a farmer.
It provides essential skills and career opportunities for women here, for themselves and their children.
My career started off as a food safety officer intern, and then I moved up the corporate ladder to being the food safety officer, and now currently I am the production manager for Black Mamba Foods. This is a huge milestone for me, as this shows that the role of women is important in driving economic growth in our communities.
Their products are now being sold locally and in neighboring South Africa. Since 2023, they have exported to key markets including the UK, US, Germany, Taiwan, and the Czech Republic. Industry researchers estimate that the global chili market is currently worth about $4.5 billion. And despite several challenges in securing funding and navigating the complexities of export markets, these women say they are determined to take a bite out of the competition. Nokukhanya Musi, Africa Matters, Malkerns, Eswatini.
Nigeria's leather hub in Kano supplies the world's top luxury brands, yet the Made in Nigeria label often disappears. Now, local designers are striving to put the country's leather back on the map with their own homegrown brands. Rumesa Choda has more.
The world's top fashion labels may be using leather from Nigeria, but you'll never know it. Kano is the country's leather hub, and hides are processed and exported from here, only to come back with European labels and at much higher prices.
We get the raw material and we process from zero to semi-finished leather, which is 80% of the whole process. And from there, we send to all over the world, and they do the final touches on it, the finishing touches on it, and they sell to luxury brands, all the luxury brands that you have heard of, like every Gucci, Ferragamo, Prada, Louis Vuitton, all the big names. It goes from Benetton to Hermes.
Nigeria exports almost 90% of its leather, worth some $600 million each year. But global rebranding means the country rarely gets the credit. Local designers say that needs to change. In Lagos, high-end creations by the Isi Omiye brand,
let's say a range $1,500 to $2,000,
aims to reclaim Nigeria's leather identity, with bags and shoes fetching up to $1,500.
No one can tell the story of, our heritage more than, inside, more than the inside. So all of our leathers are sourced locally, and, we employ these artisans locally. The goal is to push the leather from, the local region to the world. So we are telling a story, out of Africa to the world, one bag at a time.
Yet, despite its potential, the local tanning industry grapples with outdated technology, limited access to chemicals, and a lack of investment, all of which undercut its growth. In August, Lagos opened a leather factory aiming to produce goods and generate 10,000 jobs near one of Nigeria's biggest leather markets. They are hoping to put their own stamp on an industry where global giants still take the spotlight and the cash. Rumesa Chodar, Africa Matters.
That's our show this week. Share your thoughts and suggestions about the stories you've seen on this episode, and leave your comments on our Africa Matters YouTube page or on X. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me, Brenda Zeda Radido.